Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Empowered Dog Lover interview series. I'm grateful to have you here. And today I'm joined by Judy Ramsey, who is an animal communicator and animal chaplain. And welcome, Judy.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yes, I'm really glad to have this conversation. And it's something that it's very new to me. So I would love if you just share a little bit about your story and what an animal chaplain is.
Animal chaplains are a fairly new resource
Hmm.
to people who love their animals. What animal chaplains do is to help animals live their very best life. I help with introducing new animals into the home, both with communication and also with um, the habitat, and creating ceremony and ritual to help welcome new members of the family. We encourage human animal bonds to become strong and resilient with each other. Um, I help people discern end of life decisions for their animals and help them process their grief after they've lost their animal. I also advocate for animals wherever animal and human values conflict or priorities conflict, like wild animals versus development and things like that, and abuse cases. But I also help people develop resiliency um, by teaching tools and exercises to prevent and cope with compassion fatigue and empathetic distress.
Mhm.
So we see the full range of services that we have to offer. And it is a new resource that most people don't know exist yet. But hopefully they will after today.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, it's just such a wide range of support that you offer and advocacy, both for the humans and the animals. I think that is just incredibly valuable. And I'm just curious, like to start, um, if someone is watching this and maybe is in a place where they support animals, maybe it's their own animal, or they work with animals in any capacity. What kind of comes up that you would know that you're suffering from compassion fatigue?
Compassion fatigue is the physical and mental exhaustion brought on by repetitive and continuous exposure to the emotional burden of suffering, either from a person or an animal.
Mm-hmm.
And your audience, the people who are watching this program, are animal lovers. Each one of them has a very deep, compassionate connection to their own animal, or they work with animals on a daily basis. And there are things that come up in different aspects of our lives. And what I've identified is there are three areas mainly, and that is balance in our lives and mostly work life balance. It's where different elements of our lives are in the correct proportions for us to be able to thrive. Our energy, which is probably the first sign that we have compassion fatigue, is that we have no energy. We're exhausted and tired most of the time. We're also numb, that we can't feel ourselves, we can't feel anybody else either, including our animals, that we just kind of check out. And coherence, that our heart and mind are not working together. It's only the mind working and spinning and unable to focus,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's only the mind working. And that certainly affects the physiology, so that self care becomes really important in each of those categories. And I'd really like to share what I have found and developed for compassion fatigue, if that's okay.
I would love
And I developed the program, which will be a freebie for your viewers on my website after the conference. But I developed it initially for veterinarians and their staff and for shelter and sanctuary staff because they are constantly exposed to the stress of animal care. But as an animal communicator, I also have everyday people every day presenting me with their compassion fatigue of worry about their animal. So, balance, to begin with, is a state of being where one's values are in line with one's spirit, one's personal priorities are in line with what's happening with your mind. And self care is appropriate and balanced and being given to take care of your body.
it.
The overwhelm factor of balance is looking at the past, the present, and the future all at one time. And just being overwhelmed with the amount of things that we all have to do every single day. Animals live mostly in the present moment,
Hmm.
where the human mind tends to be elsewhere and not in the present. We're either too far in the past or too much in the future. Eckhart Tolle, in his book Guardians of Being, said just watching an animal closely can take you out of your mind and bring you into the present moment, which is where the animals live all the time, surrendered to life.
Hmm.
So, spending time with your own animal is the number one thing you can do to become present
Hmm.
and out of your head. When I interviewed the veterinarians for these exercises and for this workshop and training, they all said, and all of the shelter people said, when I need a break, I go back with the animals. I spend time with them so that I remember my purpose
Hmm.
and I remember how they live in the present moment all the time. Lao Tzu said at one point, if you're depressed, you're living in the past.
Hmm.
If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're in the present moment.
Hmm.
So I know this is a canine conference, but there is one resource I'd like to share that is a real quick fix for anybody who's out of balance. That is a website designed by a computer expert, Dr. Stephane Pigeon, and it's called Purrli, PURRLI.com.
Hmm.
And all it is purring. And you
I
can
love that.
choose the rate and you can choose an emotion, you can choose the depth of the purring.
Oh my
And
goodness.
if you go to that website, it's completely free. You listen to 5 minutes of that kind of happy vibration
Hmm.
and you're good to go,
Oh
you
my
know?
goodness.
And it's a real quick fix. And it's fun. It's so enjoyable. And laughing is such a quick way to get back into balance.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love
You
that.
can do the same thing with watching a dog's tail wag. But
Yeah.
the other exercise is real quick and it sets an intention and a tone for your whole day. And Miranda, you just put out a blog that was almost identical to this. So that's what made me so amazed that we were in such synchrony with each other. But if you take a pencil and paper and you write down 3 or 4 main qualities of your animal that you love,
Hmm.
and I use this as a grief exercise too, so people can feel connected with the animal who has passed, who is still a part of their heart. You write down the 3 or 4 main qualities. For me, I did this with my horse, Classy,
Hmm.
who was courageous, she was funny, she was open for any adventure at any time. And when you take those characteristics of the animal that you loved,
Hmm.
set an intention, give yourself an invocation that you can say every day as a kind of ceremony because ritual brings you into the present moment too. So what I did for Classy with her characteristics, my intention for each day sounds like this. May I choose joy today.
Mhm.
May I have courage in the face of my fears. May I open to the sunshine, the rain, the earth, and the wind in my hair. May I go through this day playfully knowing I have that choice.
Mm.
May I love completely and remember my kindness and gentleness when encountering others.
Mhm.
Now, can you imagine the power of that kind of focus to set the tone of your day every day?
Mhm.
And it makes for just a wonderful opening that's very positive, and it also makes you feel very connected to your animal.
Mm. That's beautiful. I'm literally tearing up over here because
And
it's
people do. Yeah.
yeah, because that's what kind of became clear to me is like the qualities that you value in your animal and that they're in you and in some points they've been clouded or hidden or and mine are connecting back to my courage, connecting back to my playfulness,
Yeah.
which for a long time I became very introverted, very hidden, very you wouldn't know now. I've I've expanded, but like, yeah, I mean, I would blend into the wall if it would allow me. And that, what you shared about the animal, workers being okay. I'm going to go back with the animals, and that was me, but in an unhealthy way because it was like I couldn't cope with the pain and suffering of the world, or that almost the intensity of human connection was kind of overwhelming at times. But going back to that and seeing now that so my I have a theme of foxes running throughout my life, um, and foxes are inherently curious and playful, and they have like very free spirit, and so that's my like reminder, is to come back to that. And luckily, funnily enough, you see my current dog that landed in my life. And when my sister met my dog Willie, who is this little fox, he looks exactly like a red fox. She said he reminds me of Foxy. So first thing she said when she met him, Foxy was our first family dog. And so if you look at the synergy and the connection there, like there's no denying that like kind of thread throughout my life, and just coming back to that. Yeah, but I love your idea of creating that as an invocation or an invitation to embody throughout the day.
And it makes it intentional.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just receiving those qualities, you're putting them out into the world.
Yeah.
And the energy changes all around you when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
speaking of energy, that would be the next category, the next
yeah.
aspect of our being in compassion fatigue. And like I say, it's probably the first sign. And interestingly, we're built to take on energy and vibrations from other people. It's kind of like in a herd of horses. If one horse sounds an alarm, the whole herd takes on that and begins to move into safety. And it was programmed into us back when, we were living with saber-toothed tigers and we had the fight flight built into us. But our hippocampus in our brain is designed to take on the vibrations of others and be on that alert. And those survival signals are embodied in us. So it's important to be discerning of what belongs to you and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to the evening news, probably most of your distress does not belong to you. It is ambient energy of the wars that are going on right now over the world. It's the ambient energy of all the depressing news that is offered.
Mm-hmm.
I really celebrated when the stations began to offer one good news at the end so we could end on a good note. But the overwhelm factor for energy, the energy aspect, is not knowing how much energy you've taken on from someone else,
Mhm.
and also giving your own energy away.
Mhm.
For those that work in an animal setting, honestly, you can't care more about the animal than their person does.
Mhm.
You cannot control life and you cannot rescue everybody. The
Mhm.
best you can do is hold the space to empower them to help themselves. And if they're in a relationship with a person, if an animal's in a relationship with a person, to support that relationship to be empowered.
Mhm.
According to Thomas Hubel, overwhelm comes from a sense of scarcity, not enough time, not enough capacity to feel yourself, not enough space. And then it results in numbness, the ability to switch off and dissociate feelings when you encounter overload.
Mhm.
People who have been through depression, even mild depression, know that that numbness is a survival tactic. It's the way that we survive, but it's not our natural state
Mhm.
for a long period of time. We have to come back to ourselves in order to be balanced and to the present moment. Numbness is an active process of not feeling.
Mhm.
The opposite of that, it sometimes takes us out of our bodies even. The opposite of that is spaciousness. To be able to create spaciousness, to create stillness within ourselves. And so how do you make space in a day that you could fill 26 hours of, you
Mhm.
know? If you could do stillness for 5 minutes with your animal,
Mhm.
and being with the animal, being present with them is a really good way. And just be still with them. And then when you're in that stillness, focus on the ability to listen in to your own state of being, your mind, your body, and your spirit, and just notice, what is your mind doing and what does it need? What is your body doing and what does it need in this moment?
Mhm.
What does your spirit need in this moment? And oddly enough, the slower you go in your day, the faster you're going to be in achieving what you need to accomplish, and the deeper you'll be able to go with it. Think about what gives you energy. Are there activities in your day that give you energy rather than take it? And then when you notice those different kinds of energy, mix it up, alternate them. You have an activity that takes your energy, you have an activity that gives you energy, and
Mhm.
so on. And then return to what you love in between times. Remember your passions.
Mhm.
Remember those values of your spirit and the things that you love so much. And that's why spending time, even just sitting with your animal, is so important. And breathing and self-regulation to create spaciousness. There's a very quick box breathing where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you hold it out for 4 seconds. And that resets your vagus nerve. It's, I think, part of the heart math too. And heart math is such a wonderful resource. And you can go to heartmath.com. I can't remember if it's .com or .org, one of those, to get free classes and how to do the breathing, how to do the heart math. But it's going to provide some stillness. It's going to regulate your vagus nerve, which is the master of the fight flight system. There is also a matrix statement that is one of my favorites that I love and I'd like to share. Think of a situation, it might be the one you're currently in, that you are so, your emotions are so strong that you can hardly cope on a daily basis. And if you're not currently in one, think of one
Mhm.
and remember the intensity of that moment when you weren't sure that you could go forward. Now, kind of store that memory. We're going to use it. And you think of your backbone figuratively as being your source of courage. You hear these expressions, oh, that person's got so much backbone, meaning they have a lot of courage. They can stand up. They're not going anywhere. They're going to face whatever is in front of them.
Mhm.
And your heart represents your love.
Mhm.
You're going to accept when you face whatever it is, you're going to accept it as a friend. You're going to ask for the gift of it because every situation we're in has a lesson or a gift for us if we're open to receiving it. So when you breathe in, you're going to say to yourself, may I meet this moment fully. And you breathe in towards your backbone. When you breathe out through your heart and you say, may I meet it as a friend. And you will open to the gift of the moment or the lesson it has for you. I'm going to repeat that 6 or 7 times and just see what happens to the intensity, what happens to the energy around you regarding that particular event. So think of the event and then breathe in slowly towards your backbone and think to yourself, may I meet this moment fully. You breathe out through your heart, may I meet it as a friend. Breathe in through your backbone. May I meet this moment fully. Breathe out through your heart. May I meet it as a friend. Breathe in. May I meet this moment fully. Breathe out. May I meet it as a friend. Breathe in. May I meet this moment fully. Breathe out. May I meet it as a friend. May I meet this moment fully. May I meet it as a friend. May I meet this moment fully. May I meet it as a friend. And now just check in with the intensity. Has there been a shift in the intensity of that event?
Yeah, for me personally, yes, absolutely. Yeah. It made it
It
like put
doesn't,
me back to those the
yeah.
interesting enough is also something you support with the end of life of my last 2 dogs that passed, right? Like both of them popped in my head. Those that like that's where I felt personally the most um inability to move, like that I don't know how life is gonna
Mhm.
keep going. And now with what I know now and the amazing people I've met, like I know that I will approach end of life for my next animals much differently. I will approach end of life for anyone in my family as well. But I'm curious if you'd share just, I think you have one more, do you have one more piece? Because I know there was,
I
and
do.
one more piece. Yes.
Coherence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, coherence is alignment with your true nature, your authentic self. And it's when the mind and the heart are connected as two centers of intelligence in your body. Then one has coherence. The physiological coherence is when your heart and your circulatory system are optimally functioning in clear synchrony with each other. And this state is disturbed by stress and chaos.
Mhm.
The overwhelm factor of coherence is being disembodied, where only the mind is working. And so the important part is to restore that heart mind connection and the embodiment, get back in your body.
Mhm.
Um, we give away parts of ourselves and respond to everybody else's emergency except our own. And everybody that I know that's involved with animals is like that. And what happens is that we get so anxious and worried about our animal, then our animal who is caring for us gets worried and anxious about us.
Mhm.
And then we get more worried about them, then they get more worried about us, and we just begin to cycle down together. So, what's important is to break that cycle. And we do that by becoming embodied and remembering that we are a soul that's in a body, not a body with a soul.
Mhm.
And most animals already know that.
Mhm.
And we lose connection with ourselves and the things around us. So it's important to allow time for our healing, to honor our experience, our grief, our heartbreak, our compassion.
Mhm.
An important part of that is a ritual for reconnecting. And a very simple ritual is to get a big bowl of water. You can float a flower in it if you want to. And this is often a typical shamanic prescription given by my spirit guides for clients. But you look at that bowl of water every morning and you say, I love you, Judy. And it's harder than it sounds.
Mhm.
You can also use a mirror, but I like a bowl of water, with flowers in it or something. And that's a real quick, simple way to get back to yourself.
Mhm.
You can also think every day, set yourself a goal, maybe 10. You're going to notice 10 things that are a blessing in your life every day without repeating it for a whole month,
Mhm.
and write those down so that you know how many good things are in your life. I also keep a journal. I used to keep a journal and write everything in it, and then I found out it was just bitching and moaning, most of it. So now I only write miracles. I
Mm.
have a miracle journal,
Mhm.
and I only write about the miracles.
Mm.
And feel the heart connection with your animal. There's no better way to
Mhm.
come back to yourself, to get that stillness. And I have a blessing that I channeled for you for noticing many moments of beauty in your day. Look for one joy at the beginning of your day. May that joy expand to fit your waking hours.
Mm.
Look for one beauty in the middle of your day. May that beauty energize and nurture you until nightfall. Look for one thing in nature that amazes you in your day, and may that natural wonder, no matter how small, teach you wisdom. Look for one blessing at the end of your day. May that blessing carry you joyfully into the night.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
I love that.
I appreciate the opportunity to share all of this with you.
Oh my goodness. That there's so much in there. But just what's coming to me now is I love that. I love that prayer and I love that just simple practice of coming back into the good and just I know that like from my personal experience and where I see, you know, I've seen colleagues and struggle is with that piece of almost like all of our parts of ourselves just get it disseminated everywhere and it's like you've got to have some rituals and some practices that bring you back to you. um, so things that you shared there just simple connection, a simple connection to our animals and to ourself. Like I don't think there's no separation there, right? So whether it is sitting and
Right.
consciously
Yeah.
breathing with your dog or it's looking at I love the bowl of water, just experiencing that it's connecting into what is greater than us, which then connects us into that field of love and appreciation, which only grows from there.
Yes. All you need to do is one thing. You don't need to do everything that I presented today, but if you start with one drop,
Mm-hmm.
one egg. I had a hen one time tell me that the first egg is the hardest, and then the rest of them just you
Oh
know,
my.
and
Yeah.
she was actually Penelope Smith's hen that I was communicating with. And she showed me how to lay eggs, which believe me is not as easy as it looks.
I,
But if
yeah,
you get
that,
that first egg out there,
yeah.
then the rest is going to follow.
Mhm. That's an excellent life lesson, right? It's always well, and I think that applying that to what we're talking about is it's just having the courage to take that first step in
Yeah,
supporting yourself, connecting to yourself, and then starting to see, the positive effects that come from that. It's just that
yeah,
that intentional action, um, and just okay, I'm gonna choose myself in this moment. I'm gonna choose to support me. I know for myself, like sometimes it comes in the change piece. It comes in a gradual realization, and sometimes it comes in a breakdown. So whatever
yeah,
it comes for you, like you can use a moment like this to be an awakening going, "Ooh, I see myself in a lot of this like overextending myself, giving everything I have to animals, not saving anything or not supporting myself." You can see yourself in that and choose to take one intentional action. Um, or you can wait for the 2x4 that'll come when, you know,
exactly. And we forget we always have a choice. We do. Throughout my life, except in the last decade, probably because I learned to listen really carefully to myself. But whenever I was burned out, I would have an accident with the horse.
mhm.
There was usually a horse involved. And horse accidents are not minor. They
No,
make you sit
yeah,
still and you're not able to do anything for a while.
yeah,
So if the only way I could sit still was to fall off a horse and get injured, there are easier ways to sit still.
mhm,
So I learned to listen very carefully so that I would not lose my balance,
mhm,
literally and figuratively, on that horse.
mhm.
So I owe a lot to horses in my life, but also the canines and the felines and the reptiles and all of the other critters that have found their way to my home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that learning to listen and the stillness piece of learning to listen and
Mm,
learning to pause. And I think that that is one of the most valuable. I mean, there's so many that animals bring into our life. Is just
mhm,
that so, I mean, because we're talking dogs here, like I see the more and more that we speed up, and the more and more that life becomes fast paced and there's no space. It's like the problems with our dogs amp up exponentially. And I think
they
that
do.
they're they're just showing us what's off. Because I think that
Mhm.
we also are struggling with how fast paced things are. We're just better at masking it, like, and showing up anyways, until we can't. But I think, yeah, if it is sometimes it can be looking at the animal that's in your life and going, oof, there's something off with their expression or their energy or their behavior,
Yeah,
taking that as a key to, yes, to support them and get support in figuring out what that is, but recognizing that you're also connected to their experience.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it brings us the richness. And
Yeah.
that's why we're with the animals in the first place, is because humans are a lot for all of us, you know? So it's especially if you grew up in a dysfunctional family, which I think is in the majority at this point in time. Um, you went to animals as a child because that was the only way you could be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only way you could connect with your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens to so many people. And our ability to work with nature, to work with the animals, uh, gets schooled out of us because it might be embarrassing for the family or it might be considered not within our belief structure. And so as we grow and we realize we have the choice, so many of us chose different faith structures,
Mhm.
chose to be spiritual rather than religious, but there is so much that can be done within your own religious structure if that's where you are right now. And that's my role, is to help you discover that within your faith structure
Mhm.
in a way that's going to be not going to set you aside as odd or weird or on the outside of your group, because groups are important to all of us.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no, I think that that's super valuable to find that, and that that connection you can find within with anything that you currently believe, right? It doesn't have to fit a
mhm.
certain mold. And um, yeah, I think that that is one thing that is the world really needing, is connection, is coming back to um, connection, community in many different forms, and we can do that in person or online, but creating that synergy with what you described, um, and coming together, right? Like in being able to recognize that we may have slightly different belief structures, but that ultimately, a lot of the time, we want the same thing. You referenced Thomas Hubel, which is another thing we could go on a rabbit hole about, because he is a person that I highly
Yes.
respect for creating that synergy. And for those of you who don't know, he works with trauma healing, but with in a collective structure. Okay, looking at um, how people heal in groups after they've experienced trauma. And I think that that in the animal world is very needed, to come back to connection, to come back into community, to come back as healed versions of ourselves, to then be able to support the animals and the people as well.
It does take a while because of the way we are socialized as children to
Mm,
realize we have our own sovereignty, we
mhm.
can make choices,
Yeah.
and to begin owning that, to begin owning our own sovereignty and agency and making choices on behalf of our own values and our own priorities. And it takes a while and it takes courage to to own that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it absolutely does. But I think that every step is taken in that direction, for
Mhm.
each individual person to recognize. And in the behavior world, that's the cool thing, is those words are very much starting to become commonplace when we speak about our
Yeah.
dogs, that they deserve to have agency and choice and be empowered, and to give them tools to work through trauma. And what I see also coming as that awareness builds about our animals, our dogs, that the people as well are recognizing, hey, I have that right as well. And some part of line, I've forgotten it. And as they then support and heal themselves, then their capacity to help more animals expands, exponentially. Their capacity to witness suffering, to be able to support themselves, is, yeah, vast. It grows vastly. So that's a beautiful thing.
It does. It does.
Well, Judy, thank you so much for this. Is there anything else that you feel I forgot to ask, or you want to leave people with?
I think we've covered just about everything. The Compassion Consortium is who I'm certified through as an animal chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to compassionconsortium.org, they have services that are animal based. They have spiritual practices. They also have the chaplaincy training,
Mm-hmm.
which, if you're a professional that works with animals, I encourage you to pursue, to go through it. It's an amazing program, um, conducted by Sarah Bowen, Dr. Sarah Bowen, who wrote Sacred Send Offs, which is an amazing book and brought me to the chaplaincy program.
Wow.
but I also teach, and my website is, I think, going to be listed with the program. It's just judyramsey.net.
Mm,
And you'll be able to get um, the full scope of what I presented today as a freebie on the website.
mm. Oh, beautiful. Yes, we'll definitely link to the freebie and your website below. And it's been, fascinating and quite an honor to speak to you and learn all about what you do in the world. And I'm
Thank
really
you.
grateful I met you.
I am grateful that I met you too, Miranda. I always appreciate when like minds get together. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone that's watching.
Thank you.
Tune in tomorrow.